Beautiful Mata Ki Chauki celebration going on. I think it's kind of completing right now. Electric performance today. Jagratas, as you would have seen in Vaishno Devi or otherwise, that's how it was going. I was following online, couldn't make it in person, unfortunately, but it was pretty fantastic. So, and then we have a Ram Navami celebration coming up as well. All right, so we can get started. Let's get started with our opening prayers. Today we are going to discuss an important topic. Who are we? It's important to keep revising this concept, and plus the fact that we have new participants, it always helps to reiterate that concept in our head, um, because it's something that slips out of our head, and most part of our existence actually goes in and thinking of ourselves as somebody else, which we are not, as it seems, not as it is. So let me share my screen and we will get started with our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum. Radhe Radhe. Good morning, good evening again, everyone. Let's get started. So I've picked up two shlokas today. We will continue with our journey on Bhagavad Gita, the sequential journey that we are doing. We are in chapter 4, and the Chatur Varn that we have, basically tackling the caste system, we will pick it up next week. Today I picked up a topic which is very relevant, very important, and basically the very, very foundation of spirituality. If you don't understand this concept, or if we live in an illusion, not understanding our correct identity, then it's a fundamental mistake that happens. And then there's absolutely no incentive for us to invest on ourselves. So let's get started. Let me share my screen. I've already shared that. So this is a question that we are going to tackle. That have we really wondered that who we really are? What is our true identity? And today we are going to reintroduce ourselves to ourselves. Okay, this is who we are. So if we think about this body, which we take so much for granted, right? It's doing its stuff, the heart is pumping, the lungs are working, everything is happening like a well-oiled machine for most part of our lives, right? Then we are not able to appreciate it because this is something that we've gotten used to. It's as natural to us as our breathing, but it happens. This is what it is. Everybody has a body, so what? But think about this miracle that we have, and we will look at it from a scriptural standpoint as well. How it's kind of a it's kind of something which is created by a magician. There's a lot of wizardry around seemingly this simple thing that we see, right? Our body. That's about it. And amount of work that our body does when we are sleeping is worth 40 factories of work. We know how much it takes us to run one factory. 40 factories worth of work happens when we are happily sleeping. And it is said that if that work gets translated to audio or a sound, that sound will go few miles away. That much work is being accomplished quietly by our body. And who's running it? What is the powerhouse of that is what our identity is. And the power of how our identity, who's giving power to our identity, we'll see that as well today. So let's get into the shlokas that we picked up from Bhagavad Gita. So Lord Krishna states in 15.7, very clearly he says, Mame vancho jiva loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha Mana Shasthani Indriyani Prakriti Sthani Karshati. We can take a few participants if you want to recite, maybe 2 or 3, and then we have another shloka that is a very important one. Who's our co-host today? I didn't give them a chance to also. Yes, Preeti ji, please go ahead.
Rahul ji is the co-host
Oh,
today.
Rahul, go ahead. Sorry, I stole your thunder today.
Preeti ji, please go ahead. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Rahul ji. You could go as well, whatever, but I would take the chance. Thank you. Radhe Radhe Nitin ji and everyone. Mamai Vamsho Jivaloke Jivabhuta Sanatanaha Manashashthanindriyani Prakritisthani Karshati.
Beautiful. Thank you, Preeti ji. We'll take 2 more and then we have another shloka. So, and then a bit of a discussion. So we'll proceed quickly. Yes, Rahul.
Radhe Radhe. Ashutosh ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
ममै वांसो जीवलोके जीवभूतः सनातनः मनः षष्ठानि इन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति.
Wonderful. Very nice. Okay, we can
Radhe
take
Radhe. Shyam ji, please go ahead.
राधे राधे
Sam ji.
ममे वांशो जीवलोके जीवभूत सनातनः मनः षष्ठानि इन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति. राधे राधे.
Radhe. Thank you, Shamji. So we'll pick up a few more hands in the next shloka. So let's look at what Lord is saying here. He's saying the embodied souls. So the souls and the embodied ones. We are in a body. In this material world, as we know, we are in the world of Maya, are my eternal fragmental parts. Eternal means something that does not cease to exist. We think we are created upon birth and get destroyed upon death. That's not the case. He's saying eternal. That means we are not going anywhere. Then he's saying, but bound by material nature, they are struggling with the 6 senses, including the mind. So we have 5 senses. The 6th sense is considered as our mind, because mind is the governor of our senses. And he's clearly stating that because they are under the spell of Maya, bound by material nature, conditioned state, we struggle with these senses and the mind. You know what's happening, that becomes our reality, and we get too much involved in that movie. That's what God is saying here. And the key part here is that mame vancho jiva loke. That means the souls are my eternal parts. That is the key message here. So let's move on to the next one. It's a very important shloka. It's from chapter 2 and one of my favorite shlokas. It gives us a lot of solace when you hear about it. And let's go through that as well. Nainam chindanti shastrani Nainam dahati pavakaha न चैनं क्लेदयन्त्यापो न शोषयति मारुतः. Okay, let's take a few more participants. Rahul. I can see 2 sisters together. That's so good to see. And not in a bus, I guess. You're on mute, by the way.
Udayji, are you there?
Radhe Radhe.
Okay, we'll come to you. Yes, Udayji, go ahead, please. Radhe Radhe.
Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, na chainam kledayanti apo, na shoshayati marutaha. Radhe Radhe.
Nice, Udayji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Rupa ji.
Rupa ji and Lakshmi ji. You can have your domestic fight and let us know who's going to recite. Okay. We'll not get between you.
Okay. Nainam chindanti shastrani, नैनं कारि पावकः न चैनं क्लेदयन्त्यापो न शोषयति मारुतः.
Very nice. That was a good way. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Radhe Radhe everyone.
Radhe Radhe. Okay, let's take few more hands.
Radhe Radhe, Sam ji.
राधे राधे
Samji.
नैनं छिन्दति शस्त्राणि नैनं दहति पावकः न चैनं क्लेदन्त्यन्त्यापो न शोषयन्ति मारुता. राधे राधे.
Very nice. Thank you. Samji, maybe 2 or 3 more hands and then we'll get started.
Radhe Radhe, Shruti ji.
Radhe Radhe Rahul, Radhe Radhe Nitin. नैनं छिन्दन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनं दहति पावकः न चैनं क्लेदयन्त्यापो न शेषयति मारुतः. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice. Radhe Radhe. Thank you very much.
Can we take 2-3 more?
Yes, let's take 1, 2, 3 more.
Radhe Radhe, Sumesh ji, please go ahead.
Real quick.
Radhe Radhe everyone. Nainam chindanti sastrani nainam dahati pavakaha na chainam dahati marutaha. Radhe Radhe.
We'll take 2 more. We have a bit of a content to cover and presentation as well. So let's try to cover some content and have a good discussion as well. Let's take 2 more.
Radhe Radhe, Surinder.
Radhe Radhe.
नैनं छिन्दन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनं दहति पावकः न चैनं क्लेदयन्तापो न शोषयति मारुतः. राधे राधे.
Very nice. Okay, we'll take 1 more and we'll get started.
Radhe Radhe, Meenakshi ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Rahul ji, Radhe Radhe.
So here Srivatsan as well. So let's take 2.
छिन्दन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनं दहति पावकः न चैनं क्लेदयन्त्यापः न शोषयति मारुतः.
Wonderful, Meenakshi. Thank you so much. Okay, let's take 2 more.
Radhe Radhe, Srivatsan ji.
Radhe Radhe. Nainam chindanti shastrani nainam dahati pavakaha na chainam kledayantyapah na shoshyati marutaha.
Wonderful. Thank you, Srivatsan. Okay. Let's take the last one. Beautiful, Srivatsan, and then we'll get started.
Radhe Radhe, Pragi ji, please go ahead.
Thank you. Radhe Radhe. Nainam chindanti shastrani nainam dahati pavakaha na chainam kledayantyapa na shoshati marutaha.
Thank you, Paragiji. Very nice. So this shloka, it says that it's talking about the soul. So it says that weapons cannot shred the soul, nor can fire burn it. Water cannot wet it, nor can the wind dry it. That is how special we are. Right? When we think about the death, which we are going to discuss today a little bit as well, as the end of our existence, the Lord is saying that the weapons cannot shred it, nor can fire burn it. Water cannot wet it. So it is basically untouched. Nothing can destroy it. That is what soul is. So let's get started. So the Sankhya Darshan, it explains this whole graph, right? The Purusha, then it glances at Prakriti, Vahan Tattva comes, Ahamkar, and then the mind, Panchindriyas, Karmendriyas, and Tanmatras, and our Panch Mahabhut, and that is what our body is made up of. If you look at it, there's a beautiful mapping between ear to sound to ether, skin to touch to air, eye to form to fire, like we see that. So what our scriptures tell us, the biology might have taught us something, right? How our anatomy looks like. However, our scriptures tell us that this is how anatomy looks like. Let's look at it. What are the different components? How many bodies do we have actually? See, first of all, who we are. When we say we have a body, that means something which is mine. Something which is mine is not me, cannot be me. That's a simple concept if you understand it. My car, my house, that means I'm not the car, I'm not the house. That means I am something else. So let's look at it, what our scriptures tell us around this concept. So let's get into this Panch Mahabhut first. If you look at it, this whole cycle in Brahmanandavalli, it explains how the creation comes about. So the Panch Tanmatras, they give rise to the Panch Mahabhut. And through Panch Mahabhut, we get our karmendriyas, gyanendriyas, and everything is made up of that only, material. That is the material Panch Mahabhut that we talk about, including our gross body. So let's look at it, first of all, how these Panch Mahabhut come into existence. There is a very interesting cycle around it. It all starts with ether sky, right, out of Panchatan Matras. And ether sky, as we see, does not have anything. It doesn't have a form. You can't taste it. You can't see it. So it basically is a medium for sound. You need that so that you can hear a sound. And that is why this Brahmand is also called an Om Brahmand, because first the sound was created and the sound was Om. So if you simply close your ears and you get into a meditative state, Om is the reverberation all around. And that is because the first thing that was created was Shabd, or sound and Shabd. And through that, the rest of the things started coming out. So a lot of people who do the meditation or do a Nirakar Upasana, they say Om is the ultimate thing. Yes, Om is their thing as well. But God says in Purushottam Yog Vibhag that I am the, amongst the syllables, I am the Om. So Om, it doesn't stop there. Om is the first thing that came into existence when the creation unfolds. But then when it rolls back, it goes into the Mahodar of Mahavishnu, and he has a personal form. He in turn is a planetary expansion of Pratham Purush, which is Krishna himself. So it goes beyond that. But let's start with the sound. Now, when you compress sound, the compression of sound gives air. Now another property is added. What is that property? The property of feel. You can feel air. And then our skin is mapped to that. Finally, the Panch Mahabhut, our skin, is used for touch sensation. That is mapped to air. Now, further compression of air leads to fire. Now, air does not have a form. Can we see air? We cannot see air. We can only feel it. The fire now has a form, and you can actually see it. And it actually corresponds to the sight sense that we have. And that is why it's one of the Pratyaksha Devatas we can see. And a lot of holy ceremonies, yajna, or for that marriage also happens around that witness. That fire is the witness, because there is a visual aspect to it as well. Furthermore, can we taste fire? Or can we smell fire? We cannot. So now the further compression of fire leads to water. Now the taste element has added as well, right? Anything that we taste happens through tongue or through our saliva. If we don't have that, we will not be able to taste anything. It's a different matter that God starts diminishing our taste buds as we start aging, because he tells, okay, reduce your asakti to food. But then we start compensating it by adding more masalas. That's not the intent. But the taste comes from water, rasna, sundari. However, can we smell water? No, I mean, if it's a perfumicated water, that's a different thing, gulab jal or anything like that. But the next element, the aspect is you compress further, it becomes earth. And that is where the sensation of smell, nose, that is what it maps to. So this is the mapping of all the elements which are out there to the indriyas that we have. And it's very beautiful the way this thing has been created. And when it rolls back, that earth rolls into water to fire, that the reverse cycle happens, tanmatras into mahat into prakrti back there. So this is the cycle that it unfolds. Now let's look at the body part of it. How many bodies do we have? Okay, this is an important concept to understand. This is the body we have. It's called our gross body. Our existence is actually that of us. This is the gross body that is made up of these 5 elements. Now, at the time of the death, the soul, which is our identity, it actually discards the gross body and departs with the subtle and causal body. So there are 3 bodies that we have: the gross body, as we see, then there is a subtle body, and then there is a causal body. Now, at the time of death, yes, Rahul, you had a question?
Yeah, we have a question from Pragya ji. That Nitin ji, please explain how water comes from fire. She has heard in Maharaj ji's lecture.
How water comes from fire? Huh? I mean, that formula I don't have, but it's a compression. Our scriptures say you compress fire and it becomes water, and then you compress water, then it results into soil. So hard to visualize, but this is the hierarchy of elements, how it has been explained. How it comes, I don't know. I mean, the formula part of it, but there's a compression that happens, and because of that, the next attribute is introduced because fire has formed, water has taste as well. And in soil, if you look at it, it has all the elements in it. Right? It is basically Pancha Mahabhut, everything is encompassed in that. And in fact, what comes from mud goes back to mud, right? If you look at our gross body, it is nothing but a recycled atoms of mud only. So for all that you know, I mean, it sounds a little absurd that when we eat vegetables, we might be eating somebody, right? Because everything goes back to mud. And we are nothing but a recycled atoms, or we, not we, but our gross body is nothing but a recycled atoms of mud, nothing else. In whatever form, right? Whether Hindus, they burn it off. So every element is returned back to its constituent, right? Constituent is returned back to its source. If you put it in a seabed, in some traditions, they do that. Again, fishes will eat and finally it will be returned back to mud. If you throw it away like Parsis do, the vultures would eat and finally again. So everything goes back to mud finally. That is what our gross body is. Nothing more than that we feel so great about. The key thing here is the subtle body part of it and the causal body. Okay. Subtle body is, so basically when we reject this body, the soul rejects that body. When it is no longer habitable. And that is called death. In fact, that is also a mercy. We cry over it. If you think about it, it is actually a mercy of God in old age or even in young age for that matter, because it's not hospitable anymore, or things are not aligned basically, so that he cuts it off. Okay, think of a life where somebody has to struggle and you have to see that person struggle. So God has an algorithm in a manner that he makes sure that something which is not meant to be, you are spared the bigger trouble. Okay, and that's how we have to look at it. And in fact, if you look at even the death part of it, when we grow old, if let's say we were to live eternally, we will become intolerable, not just for ourselves, but for people around as well. So it is a mercy that he gives us an opportunity to change the body. It's good for everybody, right? Because at the end of the day, those relationships are also not perpetual. They keep on changing. For all that, you know, that somebody might be your friend, next life he may become your father, and that's why God make us forget everything, because if you could remember everything, it will be a lot of tension in our life. You know, how come my wife is another's wife now, that property now, how is he owning it, and all kind of troubles we will have in our mind. So it's a mercy that he makes us forget. During the process of death and birth, we get reset. But the point here is the soul has its individual journey. It's like a lone mountaineer, and we think we form those associations, which is very natural for humans to form that. But if you look at it in perspective, it is a mercy from God, not just to us but for the other person as well, if they have to depart early or later, because the time is no longer suitable for them to continue in this cross body. However, when we go, the soul goes along with the subtle body, and then God places him in a suitable mother's womb for a purpose. That purpose is something which is determined by the choices we have made in this life. Those choices are made through our mind, and actions are carried through our senses, Gyan Indriyas and Karam Indriyas, and that becomes storehouse of our everything that we have in our subtle body. And during Pralay, even the subtle body goes for, I mean, it vanishes temporarily. And it's all causal body that resides in Mahodar of Mahavishnu. And then the causal body, the current Sharir, becomes the cause for our next birth. And it could happen within a matter of minutes, or it could take years, depending upon the karmic backlog that we have to clear up. The key thing here is it's a gross body which changes every 7 years. Our body changes every 7 years. 99% of the molecules in our body, they change every year. 7 years, pretty much everything has changed. So we know that this person is me when we look back. But if somebody, how do we know who is that me? Me is that soul part of it, although the body has changed completely, right? If somebody commits some crime and 10 years later he's caught and he says, no, by the way, my atoms have changed completely, so that was somebody else. Will they agree? No, right? That's because it's you. Your soul is still the same. And intuitively, we tell people, oh, that small boy, it's me. Although we know, right, how cute we look when we are young and what ends up happening later on. But it's us. We know that. So now the key thing is soul keeps on changing body. It's happening even in this life. We are changing body every few years. And then it's simply a transition where we shed this body and move on to the new body. And we call it death. Death is basically shedding the gross body and taking on another one. Soul will exist. Anything that is born has to die from a material standpoint. Anything that dies has to be reborn. That's what Lord Krishna says. And the soul continues to exist in unmanifest state. And then it becomes manifest again when it gets a new gross body. The key thing is the subtle aspect of it. Now, the subtle body consists of 18 elements. We will get into those details maybe another session, but just understand it for now. It's 5 ears, 5 working senses, 5 knowledge senses, mind, intellect, and ego. This is which is our subtle body. And then we have a causal body. It maintains the account of our past karmas and including the sanskars, the tendencies that we acquire over a life. So the choices that we make becomes our tendencies. And that is something that we have to carry. So subtle body and causal body, no escape from that. Only when we are perfectly surrendered, God says, okay, I'm going to burn off your causal body and car and chiri and everything. But until then, it's like a backpack we have to carry in whichever life we go. Same mind. Your mind will not get reset. Same mind will repeat with you. So the more we have worked on our subtle body, the mind part of it, trained our senses, formed productive, meaningful, healthy mindset, the more advantageous it is for us as and when we repeat. The good aspiration would be to not to repeat, obviously, get out of this material thing and get into something else. But if we have to, the least we can do is go along with the subtle body, which is advantageous for us. If we go with the troubled mind, which keeps troubling us for every little thing in life, and you repeat with that, it's a very simple process. And why would you want to repeat with something which is not advantageous for us? Doesn't make sense, right? But we still continue doing that. So Shri Maharaj said, we are all swarthi, we are all selfish. However, अगर हम सही सही ये भी समझ जाएं हमारा स्वार्थ कहाँ सिद्ध होगा तब भी बात बन जाए. So basically, although we are selfish, but if we truly understand where our self-interest will truly get fulfilled, will actually get fulfilled, then also the job is done. But what happens is we keep on creating a more homework for us. So our subtle bodies and our causal body, these are the two bodies which continue to exist along with the soul across lifetimes. It's just the shedding of the gross body that happens, which we call death, which is very hard for us to take basically, and for obvious reasons, because we form attachments and bondings, and it becomes our life, and it does, the cycle repeats for different set of souls across lifetimes, just like a train journey we spoke about, right? Everybody comes with their own exit ticket, and then we form the most strongest bonds and associations during that train journey, that come to my house and I'm this and that. And finally we leave in our station, they also leave, and they say, can you come with us, you were our friend just a few hours below back, you will not. And conversely, if you tell them, can you continue the journey with us, they'll say, no, we have to get off. It's the same with life as well. So the subtle body, causal body, and gross body we have spoken about. Gross body is made up of the Pancha Mahabhut, mud, nothing else but mud. And mud basically has all the other elements in it. It has an element of fire. And we will get into these 5 years, 5 in detail, because it's a very beautifully designed body if you look at it. Ayurveda actually tackles this from that standpoint only. Modern science will probably take them time to get to that level, because we're talking about subtle things, not gross things here. And scientists would have us believe that we are just a bunch of chemicals. If you actually take our body, you can actually decompose into chemicals worth of maybe 200, 300, 500, inflation adjusted, maybe 5,000 rupees, nothing more than that. But if you give somebody chemicals, can you create life? No, you cannot. Right? We cannot create life out of it. Yes, people talk about the newer processes that are coming, like IVF and all that stuff, but that is taking life and creating life out of it. You cannot create life out of jada thing. It is not possible. So God has not given us. They say it's a chemical reaction that is going on, but even chemistry tells us that under certain controlled conditions, you can reverse the reaction. Can we reverse death? We cannot. Other day I was telling you about Walt Disney of Disney fame. We see the Disney World, right? His owner, he had so much belief in science that one day they will be able to reverse these chemical reactions and he's going to come back to life. And he put it in his will that preserve me in the freezer, for 100, 200 or 300, whatever years it takes. And when science is advanced enough, I'll come back to life and start running Disney adventure again. As the luck would have it, I don't know who did that, but obviously his relative sons, nobody was happy that he didn't leave any fortune, with the hope that he's going to run it again. So one day in his freezer, somebody found his plug was taken off, so his body had to be disposed of. So point here being, we are not a bunch of chemicals, we are soul. And the symptom of soul, God explains. In fact, our scriptures say soul, how subtle it is. You cannot capture it in material apparatus, right? The best microscope you take, you cannot capture it because it is divine. And material apparatuses are limited in that sense. And it is said, if you take a tip of your hair, don't try it at home, but just to give you a sense, he says, cut it into 1,000 parts. And then take one part, cut it further into 1,000 parts. That is how small or big our soul is. We cannot really capture that. So, and it is seated in the region of our heart, the location also. And it permeates the entire body, the consciousness, like a sandalwood. If you apply it on your head, it will permeate your entire body. That is how it works. This is what our scriptures tell us. Okay, that is our identity, true identity. This body is not. And in fact, it takes us a while to take a closure, even for our soul. When we depart this body, it takes us a few days to realize, hey, this guy or this person that I used to look in the mirror thinking of myself is not me. Even the soul has a hard time, because that's what we relate our identity to every day in and day out. And that is where those rituals are there, 3 days, 13 days, because soul needs a closure just to digest the fact it was not me. So anyways, it's important to keep reminding yourself, because that is who we are. And then the soul further is energized by Paramatma. The Atma of Atma is called Paramatma. That is the relationship we have with God, and God actually accompanies us across lifetimes. So next life, if we become a monkey or a polar bear, he has to accompany us. He's a true Nati or Sambandhi, not the Sambandhi that we think around. They will have their own journey. The true Sambandhi that we have is God, because he has to accompany us. And if we don't do God realization, we are increasing homework as well, right? Just to continue keeping a log of our things. So if you want to reduce our homework and God's homework, it's better we complete our realization process. Unnecessary, we are creating work for him as well, right? But he's our true Sambandhi. He is more intimate to us than anybody else. And he knows our deepest thoughts, even the ones that we don't acknowledge to ourselves, because he's the most intimate. Keeps logs of everything, keeps supporting us, and that is the relationship we have with God. A very, very intimate relationship, right? Even when so that is actually our true relationship with God, and we just have to accept it, and things would change. And God realization is about, it said that when you truly start understanding that relationship, the tears will start flowing down. That is how pure, beautiful that relationship has been. It's like your father who's waiting since eternity for us to actually turn our back towards him, and we have been rejecting him for our own reasons, because of the conditioned state that we are in. All right, so moving on, we spoke about the soul. Let's quickly look at some of the symptoms of soul. So nayanam chindanti shastrani, it cannot be broken into pieces. Anything in this world, you take any sophisticated weapon, you can break it down. Everything is breakable. And in fact, in collider that they are using, hadron collider for God particle, they are breaking down some of the most smallest of particles as well, just so that they can get that elusive God particle. So those experiments have been conducted. So there are mechanisms to actually break down even the subatomic particles. Science has reached that level. But the soul cannot be broken down. It's immutable. God is saying that. You cannot really break it down. Then you can't burn it in fire. It doesn't get affected. Soul, the body can burn, soul cannot. And furthermore, you cannot wet it in water. Water has its property, right? Anything that comes in contact with it becomes wet. You can't wet it, you can't melt it. Temperature does not have any effect on it. Nothing basically. It is something which is pure, untainted, untouched, and everything. And wind cannot dry it either. So God is telling us we are eternal. We cannot be destroyed like energy. We cannot be created or destroyed. We've always existed. We are the same age as God. So we just need to understand our relationship and the fact that death also has to be seen in a perspective, because that is one of the things that troubles us the most. Not only the thought of we leaving this body, because it gives us a sense that our existence is going to cease, but also losing somebody who's close by and dear to us. It is most tragic thing that can happen to us. However, our scriptures are giving us a lot of hope and tools to look at it in perspective and derive a lot of solace from it. We are going to be here, and this drama that unfolds around us will continue lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. The only thing that we can do in this whole journey is to build reservoirs of spiritual strength that are beneficial for us, not only for us but for people around as well. So that is the idea. Any questions? We have a presentation coming up. Maybe we can take a couple of questions and then I'll hand it over to Padmaji. She's going to have a presentation today, so I'm looking forward to it. Maybe couple of questions we can take before that.
Yeah, we have 2 hands raised.
Sure.
Please go ahead, Samji.
Samji.
Radhe Radhe, Nitinji.
Samji.
Yeah, two questions actually. One is, see, our body is also made up of so many cells. That means there are a lot of atoms on us, inside us also, like every part. That means many souls are present in our body. I mean, I didn't understand that.
No, not many.
I mean,
one soul. That's it. It permeates everything. It's just one soul which imparts consciousness to everything. Just one soul. We are not having multiple souls. And when you split earthworm, it has 2 souls. Okay, now it has 2 souls. We have just one soul, nothing else. It is the powerhouse. It is giving energy to all the cells. The day that soul passes away, the cells will cease to work as well. That is why our body decomposes, right? That powerhouse behind every operation that is happening in our body, including the cellular function, is because of the soul. The day soul passes, nothing. When we say somebody passed away, who passed away? The body is still out there. What passed away? The soul passed away. And when the soul passes away, the body actually becomes insentient. That means
I mean, sometimes they will amputate a limb because it becomes decayed or.
So what?
I mean, in case of diseases.
Yes. So what? Soul is a symptom of your body. If you cut off an organ, that organ will lose that sentiousness and it will become inert at that point.
Okay. Yeah, okay. And in the Mahabharata, there are stories where I think few like dead people are brought back to life. I think Sandipani Muni's son.
God can do that. He brought back to life his 7 brothers also, because Devaki had asked, right? But then he released them and told them that they belong to some other loka now. Okay, he does not intervene in his perfect laws, basically. But yes, he has an ability to bring somebody back to life. He did that.
Okay, so only Krishna can do that.
Right? He told them, okay, no, he told them, okay, let me tell you where they are. He brought them from where they were, just to show her and give her comfort. He hugged them, and then after that, they had to go back. So God has those power. He can make anything do. But then the fact of the matter is that nobody intervenes in those perfect laws. Once soul has to depart, it has to depart. Krishna was the mama of Abhimanyu, right? Vedvyas, he was himself an avatar of God. Arjun himself was a Nar Narayan avatar. Did they bring Abhimanyu back to life? You know how they cried and wailed when he died at 16-year-old and he was mercilessly killed? Nobody did. This is the laws that everybody has to go through, and it's a perfect law. So when your time comes, you go. And in fact, Arjun went to meet Abhimanyu in Chandralok. That's where he had come for a duration of 16 years. And he said, son. And he said, whose son? right? I have become your father in so many lifetimes. You have become my son. Which son are you talking about? So that is our true existence actually. We think son, father, all that, these relations keep changing. Somebody is a son, he may become your grandfather, and all that relations are aage piche. We don't even know that, no clue. So we just have a very myopic focus around our relationships, and our scriptures telling us, think big. It's a bigger game than what you think it is. Anyways, I know I wanted to give a fair amount of time to Padmaji. We can take that after if we get time. So over to you, Padmaji, for the presentation, because I know we have a hard stop at 10 today. So I would let you take over and do that, and then we can continue this discussion. I know we can take maybe some more discussion around this topic next week as well. Over to you, Padmaji. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Okay, now I see. Can you hear me, Nitinji?
I can hear you.
Okay, let me just go to my screen. 1 second. Okay, it says that host has disabled participants' screen sharing. So if you allow me, I'll share my screen.
Okay, check it out now.
Let me check it out. Okay, let me just see. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yes.
All right. So first of all, thanks to God and Swamiji, and of course Nitinji for giving me this opportunity and jumping in on this idea. The crazy ideas that I always come up with, wanting to present something. So this topic is like very dear to me, and I write so many posts and stuff, and sometimes it could be so overwhelming for people, and sorry for that. But I wanted to present something beautiful from the heart, and this was the only thing that I could come up with. The very first thing was forgiveness. And during the presentation, if I touch upon something which hurts somebody, and then something unknowingly I'm making some comments that are not spiritually correct, please forgive me. And I have tried my best to put a purpose to this presentation, to give a closure to like the common things that we all deal with. And this is coming from my heart, like just to give a perspective from different aspects, and holistically, can I give a closure to this purpose? And I tried. And if there's any faults or mistakes, you guys have to forgive me, and everybody who is on the Zoom and being so patient and loving to me, please forgive me if I do any mistakes. So for me, anything that I need closure, I want something, a story or something which gives me a solid background that this is what I'm thinking and this is what I want to do. And how can I relate this to scriptures? Is there a story which is similar to what I am going through, and how did they close it? Give a closure to the situation, rather than the society telling me, or the mom telling me, or my brother telling me, or somebody telling me. So for me, the story of Draupadi was very touching. I could relate to many of the things similar to those things. And for the sake of the time, I'm not going to do the sloka, but I'm just going to do the translation part. This is completely from Swamiji's Bhagavad Gita recent version. And this is from 10.34. And it says, I am the all-devouring death. I am the origin of those things that are yet to be. Amongst feminine qualities, I am fame, prosperity, fine speech, memory, intelligence, courage, and forgiveness. And I have underlined that forgiveness because this is God qualities. We are not God, but we are striving to at least acquire those qualities, and we are struggling to get there. So there is a little story, behind this thing. The progenitor of humankind, Prajapati Daksha, had 24 daughters, and 5 of them are considered the best women, which is Kriti, Smriti, Medha, Dhriti, and Kshama, the forgiveness itself. And while certain qualities are adornments in the personalities of women, other qualities are praiseworthy in men. But the bottom line is, ideally, this is Swamiji saying, ideally, a well-rounded personality is the one that possesses both kind of qualities. So for me, it is very profound that from where I come from and the history and the baggage that I come from, these qualities, the godly qualities, nowhere in the scriptures it says that only certain gender has to have these qualities. It is equally both men and women have to have these qualities, and scripturally it is recommended that we have these qualities. And then coming from Swamiji, it means a lot that we have to have those qualities and try to get those qualities regardless of gender and gender bias. So for me, this was important. And then so I have to dig in what exactly the situation was and what did Sri Krishna say to Draupadi when she was faced with a situation where she have to forgive people. So I digged certain things in certain places, and I came out with a list of things, what she asked and what are the answers that she got in return, right? So of course, this story is very relatable to us, at least to me, because it tells me how human beings should act and respond to certain situations. So one of the things that she asks is, I have gone through so much of shame, I have gone through so much of humility, how can I forgive? Why should I even forgive? So one of the answers that Sri Krishna is giving to Draupadi is what happens to us, which means her, is not completely our karma, but how we react to those situations is our karma, right? Anything which is coming to us is not that we have done seriously something wrong in the previous life and then we are suffering or somebody is giving us a hard time. It is that you are a facilitator, you have a role to play in that scene, and that's how he's facilitating your position in that particular scene and what your position is. That is, he decides, right? That is our karma. But when the situation comes to you, how you react to it, how you respond to it, that becomes your binding karma. And suffering and revenge creates inner self-help, offer pain and suffering at his lotus feet. That's one of his suggestions. Revenge leads to bad karma, and justice actually leads to good karma. And women's role towards other women and society is emphasized in that particular scenario and scene, right? Draupadi asks, why me? So Krishna's answer is, you are placed right there where you're supposed to, so that you can show courage to other women in the society. And that's how I have designed it. Justice actually leads to good karma. And then Sat karma is when you are in that situation, and this is how I understood it, I could be completely wrong. Sat karma is when you're in that situation and you take bravery as your option, and then you provide a solution to the society, not just for yourself. If you're taking a situation and you're actually taking that courage and providing a solution for the society, that becomes the Sat karma. That is what we are supposed to do. That is what our responsibility is, through our pains, find some purpose through your pains and provide a solution for the society. Dush karma is constantly thinking about our pain without forgiveness, right? That is dush karma, which is scripturally, it's not recommended. Forgiveness provides great beginning for those who wronged us also, right? This was a great enlightenment for me, that unless we forgive those who has harmed us, they cannot be path on the forgiveness, right? So liberate them from that bondage, that they can reach God, as we are also striving to reach God, which is a beautiful thing for me, which I didn't see it in that way. So it was really eye-opener for me. Let me just move this screen because I cannot see my header. Okay. I just put few questions that I struggled with. Many people maybe can relate to this. Why to forgive? Because it is your spiritual duty. Of course, it purifies your mind. I can speak for this. I've gone through stuff and I really needed to know. For me, it was a little bit different situation. For me, I needed answers that why am I not getting upset and angry at the people who acted and behaved the way that they have known, and that's the only way that they know. So that's where I seek my answers. Why to forgive? Demonstrate your acceptance of love karma, right? And grudges are hard to let go and will not help you on your spiritual path, right? If you want to be on the spiritual path, grudges are not going to help you. To be wronged is less worse than we continually remembering and thinking about the past for wrong reasons. There is a fine line, I think, at least I can speak for myself, that There is a fine line between thinking about the situation, and there is fine line giving a lot of energy to that situation. So that fine line, you have to find that fine line. Am I really dwelling upon in the past? Am I substantially and moderately thinking about the situation so that I can move past? So you have to find that line, really that line, and give it a closure. Find that line and give it a closure. Choose not to be spiritually suffocated. That's why you have to forgive them. Cannot get over your traumas without forgiveness. You cannot. And you try this as an experiment. You can have grudges for years, but if you try and give yourself a little bit of chance to let go of one thought about that person, one situation about that person, try it for yourself and see how you feel, how your body experiences, how your mind experiences it. It would surprise you. Again, it's the illusion of holding us back is self. We hold ourselves. That person has gone, they're in their life, they're doing what they're supposed to do, but we develop on that situation. So we are holding ourselves back emotionally, psychologically, physically. That will hinder you as a person, whether you're a mother, whether you're working, anything that you want to do. It's the self inability that we are not able to let go. But if you forgive, you're able to break those shackles and astonish yourself. Take no for being normal, but choose to be better, right? Challenge yourself. You know what? I can be better. I want to be better. Next day is going to be much better than today. Next hour it's going to be much better, but you will fail. Accept that you're going to fail. That's what God says. Okay, fail, but learn from your lessons, but try and try and try. That's me again, right? And to decide what is that you want to do. Do you want to strive or do you just want to thrive, right? What is that your choice? Like, where do you want to go? Let's see if I can go to the next one. And when you do that, like lots of miracles would happen in your life and you would see them happening in your life, right? Who to forgive? This is a very important question that we don't know. Like, when the question comes to your mind, like who to forgive? Forgive those emotions of hurt and woundness. Forgive those situations. Forgive self. We forget to forgive ourselves, right? Situations like a very drastic situations, like very big situations, to common situations that we go through on a day-to-day basis, right? What if somebody hurt you so badly that your marriage couldn't survive? What if your kids are so alienated that they're so unloving and uncertain, and you have to deal with this on a day-to-day basis? Situations like somebody stole your money, situations like they stole your innocence, situations like they stole your trust, situations like they have taken advantage of your vulnerability. Anything, we go through this on a day-to-day basis. Our mind says, you know what, that person has been mean to me, right? This is a constant thing. So so think about those scenarios, put a perspective, learn to let go and practice, right? Someone wants to cut you short, disrespect you, undermine you, manipulate you, anything, right? These are the common things. Self, very, very important, right? For not knowing why. I have to dig in very, very deep into myself to get these sentences down. When Nitinji said, let's break it down in like 8 to 10 minutes, I struggled for past 2 weeks. What can I put on this slide so that I can wrap this up in like 8 to 10 minutes, but give them a sense of purpose? This is what I came up with for self. For me at least, for not knowing better in that situations, or not knowing enough in those situations, or not knowing then, but knowing now after I met Swamiji, okay? Not challenging self to forgive enough. That also I need to forgive, because I didn't challenge enough that I have to forgive myself, because I was feeling guilty. I was feeling selfish that I have to forgive myself, because I needed to understand that it is not wrong that I have to forgive myself. Not knowing your spiritual duty to self. I didn't know that there is a spiritual duty which is called swadharma, that you have to forgive yourself. I did not know that. Forgive those people that how did I do it? I have to put myself in their shoes, that they are also so detached from the soul as I am, right? I'm struggling to get to God. Of course, they're trying to connect with their soul. So they are also struggling. Probably they're struggling more than I'm struggling. Next one is, if I can get to this, right? Identify your forgiveness. For everybody, it would be different. It would start as a small process. If I say do this, It cannot be, right? Oh, she's telling me to do this. It cannot be. You have to identify what that forgiveness is. Maybe not talk about it. Maybe share with somebody. Start with something that you're able to manage. Identify what is the forgiveness that you're okay to let go, right? Process and name your pain and identify your emotions. This is very, very important. No situation, at least I can speak from experience, can give a closure unless you process that and name your pain and identify your emotion. What is that you're going through? Hurt, pain, cry, what is that? You have to identify, and then you have to draw spiritual courage from adversities as opportunities and from within, and that means you need to believe in yourself. What does that mean to somebody else? Identify who you are, right? And on a spiritual level, we are all soul. But since we are not there yet, identify materialistically, what is that identity that you want to give yourself, and how can you get there, and what are the tools that you need to get there? Many times you have to detach yourself from that situation, at least mentally, if not physically, to identify, process, and rectify. These are the 3 important steps that you have to do. Identify first, you have to process it. That means you have to accept that it has happened to you. If you deny it, you cannot get through the next step. You have to process it and acknowledge that this has happened. And willingness to rectify. Stop blaming yourself and others, right? Treat it as a situation, but stop blaming them. The last couple of ones, let me just move this screens. I have like 2 screens, right? Another important thing for me is stop feeding the pain to become suffering. We do that without knowing. We think that we are not doing this to ourselves, but we do this so constantly. We do not know the difference between pain and suffering when you're constantly suffering and suffering and suffering. It's the self thing. Deal with the pain, take the pain, deal with the pain, and don't make it worse into suffering so that your emotional, physiological, and psychological well-being is at risk, and everybody who is around you. Pain will take its course, patience, time, belief, faith, right? And it will subside only if we allow your inner self to heal and repair. This is a spiritual responsibility that I didn't know, that we have to heal and repair ourselves, no matter what gender. No matter what gender, no matter what culture, no matter what situations, it is your spiritual responsibility to heal and repair first before you can move on to the next thing. Love them. And this is a vision that I had to develop very early on for different reasons, right? Anybody who comes to your life and presents you with a situation, love them for what your vision is. Not what they have done to you, but what is your vision about them? Oh, this is how great this person could be. This is how fantastic and beautiful this person could be. Give that a thought. This person can be so beautiful, right? Give more energy to that process of your mind. Try to role play you, right? If you are in their shoes, what would you do? If they are in your shoes, how would you want to be justified? What kind of justification that you would be seeking if you're in their shoes? That gives you a great freedom to give them the benefit of doubt when you do that role play. Let me just move this, right? How to forgive. Things that I try, right? Know and acknowledge that people are ignorant, including us, of their doing, right? Maybe they have going through something, of course, if you want to talk spiritually, their past lives, samskaras, right? Whatever happened, traumas that they have gone through, we don't know. Before we got into their lives, they would never share it, we would never know, right? So there are things that are happening in their life that we do not know. Don't be harsh on yourself by being harsh with others, right? We think that being upset with somebody else, we think, oh, you know what? Oh, good. I have, I'm happy. No, in fact, you're being harsh when you're actually being harsh with others. Hurting people hurt others. This is a great thing, a great tool. When people are hurting you, know that they're really hurting deep down for some reasons. You might not be the reason, only God knows those reasons. Don't try to find answers for everything that you do not know. Let go of many things. Some things you want to know, other things that you do not know, leave it up to God. He knows what the answer is. You just need to know what your response should be. They need help equally as well as we do. They need help also, right? very important for me. I needed to find what are my major and minor offenses, because I did not know the definition of tolerance. I thought everything was tolerance, everything which was coming on my plate. I thought this is how it's supposed to be. God has told me that I have to tolerate. No, there are major offenses which are completely no scripturally. I needed to identify those, but I was blinded, ignorant that there is no distinction. Everything which comes to my plate, I have to tolerate it. Replace emotions with spiritual knowledge of empathy. Right? Give empathy to yourself, give empathy to the situations, give empathy to the circumstances. And what is forgiveness is not. Should I stop it? Yeah, I'll
Sorry
stop.
to interrupt, Padmaji. I think it is already 8:01, so we might need to stop.
You'll have to wrap it up maybe in another 60 seconds. I really wanted to have a bit of a Q&A as well, but we are already over, so you'll have to wrap it up really quickly.
I'll just stop here, Nitinji. Like there are like just I think like 3 more slides, but it would take.
Maybe we can have another one like we did. So, but I think for the sake of next session is there, right? So I think 15 minutes today. But it was wonderful. Like I would like to delve a little more into it. It said that humility is the foundation of devotion and forgiveness is the crown jewel of it. Beautiful thoughts. I wish we had some time for Q&A as well. But we'll continue this discussion. We have another week coming up. So, but beautiful thoughts. I would like to hand it over to Ajay and Sunil Bhai now. Padmaji will continue this conversation. I'm sure a lot of people would have a lot of questions for you around this as well. So thank you again for that. Radhe Radhe. All right, Radhe Radhe everybody. You can stick around for the book club session, and bye from my side. I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, Radhe Radhe Nitin Bhai. We're going to stop the recording here.